But yeah, the first question is going to be on the underserved use cases, and then we'll go from there. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Fireside Chat with our previous two keynote speakers. Appreciate you guys giving fantastic presentations about your products and what you're working on. It seems like you guys are both focused on the infrastructure layer for NFTs, with Voiceverse focused on voice-based, and OpenDive on the gaming and augmented reality social wallet side. If we can kind of start from first principles basis, what do you guys think are the most underserved NFT use cases within different verticals, whether it's gaming, fashion, or entertainment? Tom, do you want to start?
Oh, should I start? Okay. Yeah, so, well, it's interesting because we never really focus on one vertical. But I guess as far as content creation goes, I think there's a lot of desire for people, to access different voices. So, because we're all born with just one voice, right? And I personally don't like my voice either. So people are trying to access different voices, and even different languages. So if I speak, English and Korean, I'd love to make content in Spanish and Chinese. So I think there's a lot of underuse or a need of access there. And I think a lot of people are, trying to figure out what to do with my profile picture NFTs, right? It's a JPEG, it's a PNG file, and they've had it for over a year. They want to do more with it. So I think there's a lot of areas in content creation where we can certainly leverage and help out a lot of people.
Yeah, I think like Voiceverse is a very novel use case, and not many people are considering that yet. In particular, when we look at wallets, how do you represent this asset on MetaMask or Phantom on Solana or Kepler on Cosmos is not there yet. But I think I'll take a different spin and talk about, an underserved demographic or user demographic. In particular, the fashion, like we collaborated with different fashion schools. And throughout the years that we did this, I came to realize that, fashion students or people that are in design and fashion design, they tend to spend a lot of time designing these garments and wearables, which never get to see the light of day. They just stay in a portfolio and so forth. And, this is a demographic that could definitely leverage the tokenization of such designs and perhaps be able to monetize them or trade them on a marketplace. And that is yet to see. But from our perspective, or from actually efforts, we're trying to kind of educate some of these fashion schools and allow them to introduce courses that perhaps teaches these students about the tech and the possibilities. So you can imagine perhaps in the coming years, fashion students not only just designing and putting in a portfolio, or perhaps minting them and having them be traded on a marketplace for people to wear in the metaverse.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess going on that point about getting more people to use your products, what do you guys think are the biggest hurdles currently for mass adoption, or kind of using the apps, either using your infrastructure or other dApps currently, like the most popular ones?
Yeah, I think there are two different problems that we're trying to target, and I might be overstepping on what Irvin's gonna say as well. But I think on the first side is, a lot of these wallets and a lot of these what do you call it, marketplaces like OpenSea are very limited, and they're only able to showcase a profile picture, right? So what we did is we enabled an iframe, but it's also not very built friendly to multimedia files like GIFs or audios or videos. So when our holders or we try to show off our NFTs to other people, there's a lot of steps that people have to go through, and it's cumbersome, and it's just not a great buying experience. And even if we try to streamline it a little bit, OpenSea is not helping. So that's, I think, one hurdle that we are trying to overcome is how do we explain our project in a simple manner? Because once you have AI and voice and all that involved, it just sounds really complex. And I think the second part is, there's, I think, 500 million or 5 billion, I forgot the number, of cryptocurrency wallets, but the number of wallets that are partaking in NFT is like 5% of that. That means there's a lot of room for adoption. And I think there's a lot of room for adoption from Web2 people who are trying to buy with fiat. So that's the part that we're also looking at. We're trying to see which partners are going to allow people to purchase via fiat, and how do we onboard, Web2 SaaS people to look into Web3 and look into, more than that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think, from that perspective, 100% true. There isn't a focus. I mean, although the NFT hype was huge, tremendously, right? And people made out quite well if they follow decent projects. There isn't much love for NFTs yet on the wallet side. Like if you're an NFT holder, let me give you an example from our learnings. Okay, you look at Pranksy. How many NFTs do you think Pranksy has on his wallet? Over 70,000 NFTs.
Wow.
Okay. Do you think he can open his wallet in MetaMask mobile and be able to see them? Probably not, right? I have a few thousand, and all these wallets have trouble even loading my NFTs. I have friends actually so like we were able to get just a few hundred NFTs loaded up at the beginning. They were quite surprised. They just went ahead and told me, you know what, I haven't seen these NFTs in years. And there's not much consideration for NFTs. And the other part, that what Tom mentioned is that multimedia support is not there yet. In our case, we're currently like a private beta, and we think about it as there's a first mover advantage to launching a product, right? But there's also a niche market necessity for creating better products with better features. And so to us, it's not just about the onboarding experience, but the offboarding experience. So how do we offboard people from these existing wallets to our wallet is one of our questions, and we're approaching it very intuitively, at least from our feedback. But that's something that we keep in mind as well. And also, thinking about the underserved communities. In our case, we got to know that there's a huge movement in Turkey, a huge movement in LA for people doing XR geolocation NFTs. So they're essentially going out and minting or trying to mint NFTs in geolocations and try to do, extended reality, augmented reality exhibitions. And it's something that no other wallet, another application provides support. So that is, our take on that notion.
Oops. Did we lose Irvin, or is it just me?
No, I think he just turned off the camera.
Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially regarding the wallet limitations. I am curious, for Pranksy's wallet, how many of those 70,000 are just airdropped and on the hidden page of OpenSea, right? So, I think one aspect of wallets is like, cool, I can show through my friend, or my next door neighbor on my app, or I could send them a link to potentially something like Gallery. What do you guys think is kind of the right way, or the social stack for the future?
So I'll chime in really quick on this. We really started building this wallet because we realized that there's a lot of tools to create the media, but not as much to consume the media. And one thing we realized is that whenever you go somewhere and you want to quote unquote show your NFTs, right? Well, what do people do? They just pick up their phone and they show it, or they give you an OpenSea link or something, right? And if you look at when you go to a club or a bar, or actually an NFT meetup, everybody's trying to talk, hey, look at my JPEG or something like that, right? And so that user flow is kind of broken, right? Wouldn't it be better if you just pop up your phone and you take it off and it shows up on the wall? Or perhaps if you grab your phone and you tap it on your friend's phone and then you're able to kind of see his NFTs. That's a better user flow. And people really don't target that, right? And we see this already happening in applications that are in Asia, or targeting Asia, right? But not here within the US.
Got it. Yeah, I guess kind of going on to the type of files that current wallets or websites can adopt or embed. I know Tom mentioned the iframe for his voice NFTs. Do we expect there to be a potential new standard for NFTs that kind of allow you to put in a video, voice, or even like other senses in the future? Or do you think that, 5 years down the line, we'll be still stuck with PNGs and JPEGs and iframes?
I think, I've kind of stopped predicting the future, 5-10 years, because ever since Corona hit, I was like, you know what, whatever I do to prepare, I'm not prepared for it. But I think hopefully within 5-10 years, the infrastructure for metaverse will be ready, because I think, the world that we call metaverse is not here yet. I think it's at best some games that we have and some ways to show off our NFTs, but the true. So I think if you look at trading cards like Yu-Gi-Ohs and hockey cards from before, how you would show off them would be the equivalent of the wallets that we have, and the games that you create with those cards will be the utility and the metaverse world that we're talking about. I don't think we're there yet, but I think in the future, instead of just showing off your wallet, you can show off, games, the Zoom calls that you have. I think it'll be different, not just limited to the phone. Maybe it'll be VR. I actually don't know, but definitely, if we're not showing off more than JPEGs in 5 to 10 years, I think the future will be dark.
Yeah, I think, this question relates to a bit on standards and what is metadata. And first and foremost, I welcome Tom to catch up and see if we can introduce a new standard for Metaplex. Within Metaplex, for actual voices, right? Add voices. If you look at like the NFT standard, a lot of people think that there is a standard on Ethereum, and there isn't really a core standard. The actual metadata standard was proposed by OpenSea. That's what they have on their website, and then people took it and just started manipulating and so forth. So there's a ton of actually NFTs within Ethereum dating beyond 2017 or 2019 that are broken. They're not compatible with the quote unquote OpenSea standard. And then you have people kind of minting these NFTs with metadata properties that OpenSea or their wallets don't consider, and so forth. And so I think this is definitely necessary. It should be solved or addressed within Ethereum, but it hasn't yet because everybody's using the OpenSea standard. But on the contrary, when you look at, for example, Solana, I kind of took a first principles approach and started looking at what is broken and what is missing within other ecosystem standards. And so Solana, for example, has a lot of tooling for creating NFTs, for structuring your metadata and deploying and so forth. And most recently, it's considering new types of assets. It's considering things like music NFTs, books, video, 3D models, and so forth. In our case, currently we're writing a spec for the notion of the audio spatial NFT. So when you look at gaming, most of the quote unquote gaming NFTs are just JPEGs. There isn't really an asset attached to it. Engine, for example, if you guys are familiar with this Ethereum project, which now has its new chain, I used to think that they hosted the 3D models or the assets, on chain or on decentralized storage, and it wasn't the case. It was just a JPEG. And so all that the NFT did was essentially when you connected to the game that queried or introduced the asset itself. I think that in the near future, what needs to happen is that the actual asset could be stored in decentralized storage, or perhaps could be directly connected to an immutable type of storage device so that you can just leave, this game or this metaverse and walk away with your asset on your own. But to that end, for example, what else could we do if we are able to have access to perhaps an avatar or 3D model? So I don't know if you guys caught that tail end of my keynote presentation, but we showed an avatar on the far right. And so that avatar is an NFT that we minted. And so whenever the user uses our wallet, they would pull down their avatar and they can play and interact with it. They can wear it. They can just place it on someone and create funny videos or content, and that is yet to see. And so that's where a notion of the audio spatial NFT comes into play, because the NFT could hold different kinds of metadata. It could hold things like the actual JPEG, the visual aspect. It could hold an audio component and perhaps a spatial component that tells an augmented reality wallet or a virtual reality wallet what could happen if the user interacts with the NFT as it approaches. But these are more interactive, more immersive kind of use cases that haven't been pursued. And currently, in our case, we're kind of looking to find a way to standardize and be able to kind of engage other creators to also deploy these type of NFTs.
Awesome. Thank you, Irvin. hanDAO, one of the co-hosts for the event, are also supporters and investors in Metaplex. So very happy to see that it enables you to kind of work on different initiatives as well as play with new composability methods. I guess, Tom, your first collection launched on ETH. So if we can kind of talk about what the cross-chain future, or if there is a cross-chain future, whether you guys have plans to going to different chains, or you are going to stick with ETH for the time being.
Yeah, I think it's, even when we were minting our first collection, we were debating whether we should go with ETH or with some other chain that provided cheaper gas fees. I think when projects launch, mostly it's, three things that they consider are the gas fees, what kind of big name NFT projects are on the chain, and how secure is it with privacy and data, and does it crash or not. And I think so far in the NFT world, ETH has been kind of the go-to, like, if you're going to be legit global, so-called, people went with ETH despite the gas fees. But we're always considering different chains. I think it also depends on the demographic that you're trying to target. I think a lot of people in certain countries are more familiar with one chain than the other. So it's not something that we're fixated on just ETH alone. I think it's something that we can change depending on our collection. And I think moving between different chains, a lot of collections have done that as well. If there's definitely more advantages that we'll definitely consider. It's just that chain itself is not, which chain we use is not the most critical thing when we're trying to launch a project, I think.
Got it.
Yeah.
Irvin, do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah. By the way, yeah, Lucia told me about the Metaplex. I'm actually a strategic advisor to Metaplex. This is definitely exciting. But like Tom is saying, there's I think fundamentally, like, if you're an artist or a creator, you want to go where there's the most liquidity and the most collectors. And at one point in time, Ethereum had that a lot, but then we noticed the rise of Solana, for example, and the rise of collections as well, succeeding on that end. So at the first thing to consider, if you're going to go ahead and mint a project or do a one-of-one, you have to see where your audience is, where your collectors are. And one-of-ones, for example, succeed in Ethereum, but during the NFT bull run, one-of-ones didn't succeed on Solana, and now one-of-ones are kind of like still doing quite well in Tezos. But if you want to do a big collection and you have, great movement or market traction, then Ethereum is the place to be, because that gives you the most validation and the most liquidity in general. And if you look at other chains outside of that, some of them don't even care. The ecosystems don't care about NFTs. Like, we're looking at some EVM chains that they had $15,000 volume like over 2 weeks, which is like nothing in comparison to like Ethereum or Solana or their other NFT focused chains.
Yeah, I guess on that note, regarding NFT specific chains, we've seen layer twos like Immutable X, as well as new layer ones that are popping around using the Move smart contract language, whether I think Sui is more focused on NFTs and GameFi. Is there a potential unlock that you guys are looking for that would make you want to move over to a new layer one or layer two? Or would that more just be about their ecosystem and the type of users or kind of onboarding process that they can bring?
I think it would be the latter. We would always try to focus more on, the users, the market that we're targeting, how big is it? And then the second consideration would be from the dev side, because if there's business, well, we can work with the devs on the dev front. But even if the dev environment is great and all that is great, if there's no business that we can achieve, probably not the top choice.
Yeah, I think there's a few things to consider. I mean, we have some partners who we build games for who are considering new chains like Aptos or Sui, as you mentioned, some of the Move-based chains, because they might get an edge, a first mover advantage in comparison to going to other chains like Ethereum or even Solana. So I think that's a bit of a business question. But one of the if anybody here is really looking to go towards an EVM or Ethereum-based chain, I think there's an advantage towards even launching your own layer one or your own blockchain through something like Avalanche as a subnet or Polkadot parachain, because for NFTs in particular within Ethereum, they're inefficient. The contracts themselves are not efficiently. You can't query directly for NFTs and so forth. And so that's a huge use case for building, an EVM focused chain, let's say on Avalanche or Polkadot, where you can kind of optimize the way that the NFT is stored or managed, so you can provide a better experience for your user, perhaps. But other than that, I'd say it's definitely like, for the most part, a business question and a community question.
Got it. I think that's a really interesting take, Irvin, because I do also believe in the DApp chain thesis, but most of the projects that I've seen, whether it's the Treasure or Treasure DAO Magic Squad, they want to own the whole vertical, right? Marketplace fees, as well as owning their own validators, potentially Kind of going, if you guys were to give advice to an upcoming founder, whether they're starting up or potentially a huge megacorp Web2 gaming studio or publisher, what do you guys think would be the best advice that you would say or give in terms of choosing a layer one, choosing the standard, and kind of how to launch and go to market?
Irvin, if you
I
have an
can go
idea,
first.
you go first. I'm thinking.
So like we have experienced this because we have a few partners that essentially ended up hopping between blockchains. And I think if you're a founder, okay, or even if you're an enterprise, you have to go to a blockchain with an ecosystem that will support you. So, and I'm not just referring about the community, but also internally, there's an ecosystem, there's a foundation perhaps that is, targeting GameFi. I think you want that. You want that sort of backing if you're launching a product, if you're established enterprise, because there's a lot of chains that, they're pretty, top down right now, but their focus is not GameFi. They might not care for it. They might not put too much emphasis. So perhaps you're a late mover to their chain. So then you're kind of like a straggler at the end and will get as much focus on. And then the second part is, like what I mentioned, also the community. Like there's chains, I'm not gonna mention the names, but there's some blockchains that do quite well on DeFi, but in GameFi or NFTs, they're not there, right? It's not there. It's not there for them. So it's definitely that. And then the third thing that I'll mention, and this is just, you might imagine, is that you also want to be in an ecosystem or blockchain where you have a developer advantage. So where you can just hire or be able to build as fast as you can. I mean, one of the sad things that I noticed like a few weeks ago was actually Compound, or Robert talking about leaving Polkadot ecosystem. He's, because he planned to build, Compound chain on Polkadot, so using Substrate, and he quoted about saying, sadly we're leaving Polkadot. We should have chosen Cosmos. And my response to that was the community was, well, it was because probably for the most part the Polkadot ecosystem didn't support Compound on their endeavors, and perhaps Cosmos now will kind of take them in and help them build their product overall. So those are definitely critical things to consider if you're a startup or a big enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, Irvin covered everything. I don't really have much to add, but when we were starting, I guess, just from experience, we were debating, I think, among three. So we were debating among Solana, Clayton, and ETH. And we chose ETH because of the consistency of the chain, of no crashing and anything. And we wanted our, I guess, global clout that, we're on the biggest blockchain, like we're a global strategy company. So we didn't deep dive into things that Irvin said. We were noobs. We're just getting started with any of your project. We're like, all right, if we're gonna go big with something that we can trust. So that's why we chose ETH.
Got it. Yeah, that fundamentally makes sense. Tom, I know you mentioned that you don't like predicting the future, but if we kind of had to and get some spicy takes before we close, say 5 or 10 years down the line, what do you guys think will be the biggest unlock that happens from infrastructure? Or what do you think the ideal infrastructure layer for NFTs look like?
For us, I think is the development of AR, VR, and how easily people can interact with it. Because right now, if you think about how you can interact with VR, AR, is you have to have glass or some sort of equipment that you have to like plug into your phone or your laptop. You have to go into your game. You have to connect your wallet. It's a lot of cumbersome things that you have to do. But what if it's something so simple that you turn on your phone and you go on your messaging, you turn on Google and you search something? What if something so simple that you just, something as easy as checking your phone? Like if that can happen for a VR, AR world, I think not just voice, but just NFTs in general would benefit a lot. Because right now the metaverse is not as easy to access to a lot of people. Even if for those who are already in the NFT and metaverse space, it's just not easily accessible.
Cool. Thank you, Irvin.
I think 3 to 5 years on the line, our wallet succeeds. So we're number one, Kiyomi in particular. What I mean to say is I think there needs to be reimagination and a reinvention of the wallet. The notion of the wallet or the cryptocurrency wallet is outdated. It's not suitable for the traditional user or the Web2 user yet, right? If you can't even send transactions to your mom or to your grandma, it doesn't make sense. So people need to rethink what the wallet is, right? Not everyone needs to have a swap inside the wallet, and not everyone uses that. And so that's what ideally will happen. And the other part is that we'll see more social interactions with NFTs. And I think that's definitely coming, and that's definitely something that will unlock the potential of crypto and both NFTs, because people can connect not only physically but also virtually and cyber physically. And the third thing that I would like to see is really, it's more an educational side of things. It's people rethinking what decentralization is, or rethinking what the metaverse is, because it's kind of what Tom hinted, was that, you know, people don't understand that a lot of these quote unquote metaverse plays are just simply, open world games that are hosted on centralized servers, ran by an entity that can go bankrupt or just shut down your quote unquote metaverse world. It's not a decentralized future yet. And so I would love to see a re-education and also rethinking of these concepts, so that we can strive towards a more open and decentralized world.
Just to add, sorry, tagging on to what Irvin said on education, I think, right now, if any family is having a talk about NFTs or cryptocurrency, it's about, it's like a quick way to make money. But I think when we reach a point where, we can have dinner side conversations with like your parents and your siblings saying, hey, like, you could do all this with NFTs, where the society like comes to a point where like we are all educated, I think that's when NFTs and metaverse will be more accessible and more mainstream. And I think that's the word that we're looking for.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. I think even introducing even my parents or my grandparents something like a social recovery wallet would be great, as well as I think everyone in Web3, or at least Web3 users, encourage more competition for MetaMask, especially on mobile. So very excited for you guys' future. I appreciate the time you guys took to speak with us and your awesome keynotes. Thank you again. And we will be working on the education side, providing free content for everyone so they can learn from guys like you. And thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Much love.
Bye, everyone.